Hey everyone, so this is a call, and what I want to kind of cover in this video is I want to talk a little bit about this idea of Kundalini, and I want to talk a little bit about the awakening process. This has kind of been a topic that's been on my mind for quite some time, and I couldn't say that I actually understood it too much until I started to dive a little bit deeper into it. And it wasn't so much that I didn't understand the process or what needs to be done in order to awaken the Kundalini. What I didn't quite understand was more sort of like, how do I say it, the esoteric physiology aspect. But before I get into the video, let me go ahead and talk about two links down below the video. The first link is for my website where you can find my email, and that is for those of you who really need some help resetting your relationship with your sexual energy. So you can go ahead and check that out if you're interested. And also down below the video, you're going to find a link for something free. It's for the formula. It's something I've created that's specifically for those individuals who are interested in cultivating sacred sexual practices. So, all that being said, what I want to go into is let's talk a little bit about the awakening process or awakening Kundalini. So real generically, the awakening process happens in two different ways, either acutely or chronically. What do I mean by acute versus chronic? Acute would say, like, these are the practices you're doing in the moment that can help awaken your Kundalini. Now I'll get into some of those specific practices here in a moment. And then what is chronic? Chronic would be those things that you are doing over time that ultimately sort of increase your body's efficiencies and also help you sort of calibrate your intention in how you're approaching life, right? So in other words, the idea is that the things that you're doing to help you align to spirit, all right? So those are the two ways, or the two general ways in which you do accumulatively, you do all these things, and then it starts to change how your energy is flowing within yourself. All right, so first off, let's go ahead and talk about the acute aspect, meaning the practices you do in the moment that can help awaken this energy. The thing I have to say about the acute practices is that the acute practices also have a chronic effect, meaning we're going to talk about the bandhas specifically. So you have root lock, diaphragm lock, and neck lock. I'm not going to get into the yoga terms for these things. You can look it up. Bandha is the general term. So root lock, diaphragm lock, and neck lock. What are these doing actually? So when you're contracting root lock, what's actually happening is you are basically shifting the energy from your pelvic floor upward towards your navel. Now, why is this important? Well, the reason this is important, whether you're coming at this from the philosophical angle of yoga and tantra versus Taoism, they always keep talking about the alchemy is actually happening in the belly, that space down below the navel. Okay, so directly above the perineum, inside the belly, 2 fingers below your navel. This is where alchemy happens. And in the yoga terminology we're going to talk about here is apana and prana. Okay, so apana, we're just going to generically say, is the energy of elimination. So when you're applying mula bandha or root lock, what you're doing is you're contracting your pelvic floor, anus, perineum, genitals, which is going to cause a lift, which then pressurizes, that's the word, so you're going to want to remember the word pressure. So pressurizes the apana up into the navel area, all right? So then when you inhale through your nose and you move your awareness down towards the navel, this is bringing prana down into the navel, where the mixing happens. In this mixing, the Taoists would call steaming. All right, so this is the steaming process. It's shifting your base energies upward to mix with the prana. So apana and prana meet, and this is when Kundalini starts to become activated. Now the process is, in a lot of ways, it's actually just that simple. Okay, so the bandhas are an acute practice that if you do them chronically over time, they start to impact how these energies are mixing. Okay, so now what is diaphragm lock? Uddiyana bandha is the term. So you're pulling in and in up under the ribs. It's not that, so all the air goes out. So this is how you do Uddiyana Bandha or diaphragm lock. So you exhale all the air out, right? And then you pull in and in up under the ribs. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to contract down your abdomen, right here, down the center of the abdomen is something called the aponeurosis, I believe. And it's a band of connective tissue. So when we are creating this vacuum inside of our belly and we're pulling in and in, what we're doing is we're trying to pull this aponeurosis towards our spinal cord. Specifically, the 2 points that we're attempting to hit along our spine is the point opposite your navel and the point opposite your solar plexus. Now, just to define the solar plexus really quickly, solar plexus is the space below the sternum but above the navel, okay? So if we're going to use the vertebrae, what we're talking about is C4. So the C4, or excuse me, L4. My computer keeps shutting off here. So L4 is one of the points, and that's the point opposite your navel, approximately. And that is actually corresponds to what one of the, they call it the Brahma Granthi. I'm going to mispronounce that. Brahma, and then Granthi is basically means a knot. So Granthi is spelled Granthi. Okay, so this knot it's a point where energy can become congested, or energy simply is not flowing as it should be. So part of pulling root lock and diaphragm lock is that in pulling towards that point starts to loosen that area so energy can flow more freely. And also, more importantly, you're drawing your awareness there, right? So the awareness is ultimately, it doesn't matter how many contractions and techniques you do, really what it's about is your awareness and your consciousness and the clarity of your consciousness, okay? So that is L4. And then you have T8. So T8 along your spine corresponds to one of the points that's opposite your solar plexus. So again, when you're doing Uddiyana Bandha or diaphragm lock, you are pulling that aponeurosis inward and upward towards that point as well. And so again, in essence, what you're doing is you are interacting with some very profound nerve plexes, or plexus, is there a plural for plexus? Anyway, nerve bundles, we'll call it nerve bundles. All right, so there's nerve bundles that you are then engaging, okay? And so all this, again, is loosening connective tissue. It's engaging the nervous system. It's ultimately, usually you have to do some breath work with this, so you're engaging the endocrine system. So these are acute practices which can awaken Kundalini. Now, neck lock. This is the final bandha. So the neck lock, basically what you're doing is you have to make sure you have an upright spine first. Because if you have a slump posture and then you tuck your neck, all you're doing is slumping more. So you have to make sure that you're anchored, right? So you get that perineum pressed down, your spine is tall, then you tuck your chin and you're going to pull your spinal cord tall. All right, so this is all about pressure and hydraulics. Okay, so it's pressure and hydraulics. You pull the root lock, you pressurize apana, or the energies of elimination up into the navel. You're inhaling, you're drawing your air down into that space. You're causing alchemy to happen. Your belly, theoretically, might get warm from this, okay? So that's the mixing process. And then we start to awaken the Kundalini through this particular process. Kundalini awakens through your awareness going to different parts of the body, and then the correct application of technique. So this Kundalini serpent starts to awaken, and as it awakens, it starts to move up the spine. Well, what is the Kundalini nerve? The Kundalini nerve, I guess that's kind of the term I want to use. Kundalini nerve, actually what we're talking about is a very, Shushumna is the term here, right? So Shushumna is a very fine filament at the center of your spinal cord, okay? So we're looking to shunt all of our life force into this Shushumna, or this very fine filament at the central part of our spinal cord. Now, so that's why we do these practices. It helps pull the spine straight, and it creates hydraulics or pressurization. Okay, so that's the function of the bandhas. Now, how might we perceive this? Okay, so in your mind's eye, you do these chronically over time. What you might start to perceive, at least from your root up to your throat, it's as simple as this. I don't want to get into chakra talk. Okay, so we're not going into spins and chakras and traumas and all these things. It's simply a silver thread. That's it. It's a silver thread. It's a silver thread that you're going to perceive. And that's all the energetic anatomy you need to understand relative to Kundalini rising up to the point of the throat. From the throat upward, then you're going to get a passage or a space. I believe this space or this passage in like Kabbalah is called Dahat. You can look that up. And again, it's a bit of a mystery. It's a mystery space. But basically what it is we're moving this silver thread. We're going through the passage in order to get to the golden thread. The golden thread is the third eye point to the pineal gland at the center of the brain. So we're looking to clarify through our awareness, through practices, through breath work, through technique, and also the chronic things that one should do in order to awaken Kundalini, which I'm going to get into in a moment. So this golden thread is from the third eye point to the center of the head where the pineal gland or the Kundalini gland lies, right? So this golden thread can be perceived once again as light or golden light. If you close your eyes at the center of your head, above the roof of the mouth, you might perceive a light there. That's kind of what we're working to perceive. So if you can perceive this silver thread, this space that occurs when you start to navigate the throat and the sinuses, etc., and then the silver thread from the third eye point to the center of the head, this is the Kundalini awakening sort of anatomy, okay? Now, how else can we awaken this outside of doing yoga or Taoist practices or anything like that? Well, diet, okay? So interestingly, like when I was going through Kundalini Yoga teachers training, they were very adamant about this idea that we had to eat a vegetarian diet. So I did. 40 days, I ate as a vegetarian. Hated it. Didn't work. Sorry. Any vegetarians or vegans watching this video, it's good for some people, not good for everyone, okay? And I know there's the whole compassion around animals and all this kind of stuff. Well, I find that actually my body, energetically speaking, I have greater nervous system clarity. I have greater, all the sort of blood measures, if I go to a doctor and get all my blood work done, all these measures are improved if I eat a ketogenic diet, meaning primarily meat and vegetables, okay? So it's different strokes for different folks, basically. Also, you could look at your blood type. I actually find there's a great deal of legitimacy to the blood type diet, but I'm not going to go into a lot of details there, right? But diet is one of the ways in which we can start to awaken Kundalini. So in other words, diet can be a sacred spiritual practice, as many of you might know. Fasting is really, really well known and well established as a way which, if people are going on retreats or going to experience some sort of very powerful, they're wanting to experience some sort of powerful psychedelic experience, usually they recommend fasting. I found very similar results from doing ketogenic diets. Okay, so I'll go for like 4 weeks doing an antifungal diet, which is primarily ketogenic, and I'll experience tremendous nervous system clarity. My meditations go extremely deep, and I'm having tremendous visions. I'm a type O blood type, by the way, and through trial and error, I found that eating a ketogenic diet is best for me. So just saying. So what else can we do to chronic practices in order to awaken our Kundalini? Well, obviously exercise, movement. If your energies get stagnant, well, what happens? Energy will kind of flow downhill and simply settle. So you need to keep moving in order to sort of excite the energies, right? So this then, if you do a lot of flexing and things like this, it will start to get the energies moving, which then give you something to perceive so that when you do go into meditation, which is where the real magic happens, you have something to see. Your energy is in motion, it's moving. Breath work, right? Doing breath work every day helps increase lung capacity, helps ultimately manage your stress. Stress, if you have too much stress, you have too much adrenaline and cortisol and all these other compounds, which all work against you if you're interested in raising your Kundalini, okay? Let's see what else. Intentionality, right? So what are the intentions you're holding within yourself? Gratitude, again, doing daily prayer, gratitude, all these kinds of practices are going to help raise the Kundalini. Because what we're doing is we're changing the biochemistry in our body. You could probably ask, well, how does gratitude change your biochemistry? It absolutely changes your biochemistry. Remember this one thing. The greatest factor in your wellness, in your ability to awaken spiritually, etc., is how you inhabit you. The attitude you hold is as relevant as the food you eat. If I could eat all the greatest foods, we'll say all the foods are very sattvic or very calming, right? That doesn't matter if my attitude is not sattvic or also calming. Hopefully that makes sense. So you got to think about the food you eat, so what you're bringing into your body. This could be, and also I want you to think about food as information, right? What is the information you're bringing in? If you're sitting around watching politics all day, I like politics, but honestly, if I look at politics too much, I turn into a very judgmental human being. I'll just put it that way, which is not helpful when it comes to raising Kundalini, okay? So the idea is that we want to be able to be present and centered and have our vital energies in our body moving, because it's in a state of presence or meditation or centeredness that this energy is then allowed to rise up. If you're engaged in thought process or judgment or politics or whatever it is, then the energy gets distracted, or in essence it gets diverted from the body's central channel, the Sushumna, okay? So those are some of the things you can kind of do here. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to kind of mention here. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to kind of cover. But basically, you know, the objective, at least I had when I was first starting my spiritual journey, is that I felt sort of cut off. You know, I was right around the age of 28, and I felt a tremendous suffering. But the suffering wasn't because my life was particularly difficult. I mean, it was, but no more difficult than perhaps a lot of other people. But I felt a tremendous suffering, and it was connected to something very significant, which was I felt cut off from my intuition. I felt cut off from my authentic expression in life. And so it was this feeling of being cut off that ultimately sort of created the desire to rediscover all that I am. And so through the process of meditation and yoga and all these different things and allowing these energies to rise up, I learned how to calibrate. This is a very important word, to calibrate to spirit, right? Authentic expression is calibration to spirit. You could be in a business meeting somewhere, and in business world, they like to use the word authentic, right? Well, what is authenticity? It's always calibrating the spirit, whether the business world wants to use that word or not. It is. It means that there is no contradiction around your actions and behavior. There are no lies. There's simply flow, okay? So authentic speech rises from your belly outward. There is no thought process, right? There is no oscillating between this and that. It's simply that the energy in the emotion is free to flow without contradiction, without lies, or the desire to mislead anyone. So that is an authentic movement of speech. So that's ultimately what we're attempting to do when we're raising up this Kundalini. So with all that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I very much appreciate you watching. Thank you all.